Hi there. Welcome to the pod that is called Caring in Crisis. And my name is Ulf Sandström. I met two extraordinary people when I was working as a humanitarian activist with stress and trauma. And I want you to meet them, and I want to share our stories and experiences. First, let me introduce my colleague, Gunilla.
Yeah, so Ulf and I, we know each other since quite some time now because we've been working many places in the world, internationally, and in different kind of crisis situations, and a lot in different refugee camps also. So we want to share with you some of the things that we have learned to keep ourselves sane in these kind of difficult situations, and also some things that we have been teaching others for the same reason, to find calm in crisis. And one of the persons that we met now 5 years ago, actually, because that was in 2015, was Dr. Siana, who we found in a tent on a hill outside a refugee camp on the island of Lesbos. Wasn't it, Siana? That's where we met the first time.
Thanks for that introduction. I can just see myself like a little hermit sitting in my tent on an olive grove in the notorious camp of Moria in Lesbos. I'm a family practitioner by training. Won't tell you how long ago because I'm really old, but I decided to do my first medical mission in 2015 to respond to the refugee crisis at the time. And it's interesting, we're all sitting here now self-isolating in another crisis, aren't we?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. You know, when we went there, we're going to help people who are in a crisis, who are refugees from their homes. And now we're sitting here as refugees in our homes.
Yeah,
indeed.
And it's interesting because there's several things in those situations that are the same. I mean, we are in places that we don't really choose to be all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, we don't choose to be here, and yet it's so much more important to do what we do. You and I, our main concern is keeping sanity. Sanity is our business. How do we keep calm? And that's actually how we started our collaboration, Sienna, wasn't it?
Yeah, as you said, finding calm, I thought, yes, please. So although I'm a medical practitioner by training and I have an interest in mental health, I'm also a mother. I'm a mother of 5 children. The sanest and the calmest of my 2 are no longer living in my home, and I miss them dearly, my 2 big girls. And I've got my 3 boys who I love to bits. But hey, they are driving me crazy. And, you know, part of me thought, I'm sure there must be other parents in this situation. And so, you know, the purpose of today is really to talk about the people in us and how we're coping with this crisis we find ourselves in, the new coronavirus pandemic crisis.
Yeah, and actually it is like you were working, but you're not allowed to come to your work, isn't it? Because you had some sneezing, and I mean, you have to stay at home now.
Oh yes, so I'm self-isolating. I did about 1 week of work in March, and shortly afterwards, and during that time as a frontline healthcare practitioner, I'm a GP in the UK, I was exposed to a patient with symptoms who bypassed all the systems. You know, I was assured that all the patients are being triaged, don't worry. And you look on the news and there's this thing about PPE. And at that time, it was like, PPE? Well, how dare you mention masks? That's so unfriendly.
What is a PPE for somebody who doesn't know? What's a PPE?
PPE is personal protective equipment. So it's the thing that our government are talking a lot about, and I really don't want to make this political, but I have very strong feelings about it. They are talking about a lot, but they're not delivering. So they're not delivering protective equipment to frontline medical staff in the right way.
Yeah, but the thing is this, when we met in the Olive Grove, me and Gunilla were there actually to distribute personal protective equipment. Because what we distribute are methods for keeping sane, ways of actually doing 5-minute exercises that can bring down stress, whether you're a patient or you're working as a general practitioner or whatever it is. And I just want to put this on the map. So when we met you, you were working there, you were an activist, you were helping people. We were there spreading the PPE of what we call trauma tapping, which we'll tell everybody what that is in a little while. And we just, instead of trying to explain it to you, Gunilla just asked you, do you want to try it? Do you remember that experience?
I do remember that experience, and I thought, "Oh, what are you guys going to do to me?" And I was a little bit skeptical, right? I was a little bit
but
skeptical, I admit.
you were skeptical. Of course, you were skeptical because we said that, you know, if you allow us, or if you let Gunilla tap on your body for a few minutes, you might experience calm. But the part of you that was skeptical, which is good to be, is probably the scientist and the doctor, and the other part was going, "Yeah, I'll have some of that."
Yeah, because everybody was working too much. I mean, at that time, all of us who responded to that situation, you know, wanted to do as much as possible, and I think you were one of them, wasn't it, Sienna?
That's right. So I mean, you know, when and this applies now too. Okay, let's just think about this. You know, as soon as you know, say they recruit me when I'm better and put me in a hospital ward, suddenly I'll find myself quite compelled to do long hours, working and serving. And what's the thing we do? We disregard ourselves. So as a healthcare practitioner, and then of course I'm a mum, you put yourself at the bottom of the list of needs. And slowly, you're going to get tired, physically tired, mentally tired. And it's this thing where, when do you press the pause button? The coronavirus pressed the pause button on our entire world.
Yeah.
When do we get that opportunity to put the pause button on ourselves?
Yeah, and I think that is what is so important. I try to tell that to my friends and all colleagues, is that, I mean, this pause button, it has a lot of challenges, but it is to use the time of challenges to do something. I mean, people have been in different camps, in prisons. I mean, you've been in isolation in different ways, and some come out more wise than when they went in, because you use the time to do something, you know, to help yourself, or even to, you know, develop yourself, whether it's spiritually or intellectually or professionally, because there are so many ways that you can do this today. So instead of, you know, taking on to, I mean, this kind of stress relief that is alcohol, or, you know, getting angry or frustrated, there are things you can do. And we really want to share some of that, because that's what we shared also there in Greece, and what has been developing later on when we have been working with Sienna and her organization that you created, Kitrinos, and who is a medical care, taking most of the medical care for the refugees still in Lesbos. So perhaps we should do an exercise.
I think we should. And I also think, you know, I mean, we've been talking to people actually who have been a lot in those situations: refugees, people in prison, people working in prison, people in hospitals. And the fact that you use the time instead of postponing life just because you think that you're in quarantine. You postpone life, saying, once I can walk the streets, I'll do this. Once I have enough time, once I have enough money, once I know my job is secure, once the kids aren't bugging me, you know, all these things are just postponing action that could change your life right now instead of waiting. So accepting the fact that, yeah, this is a pandemic. We have no idea where it's going. You know, this might go on for 5 minutes, for 5 years. We have no idea. Let's just accept it and just start doing things right now that make us feel better right now. That's the pause button.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and yeah, I do completely agree. And of course, I mean, first of all, taking all those precautions when it comes to your, you know, your health and your hygiene and all these, but that are things that are being voiced out all the time, at least in the news in Sweden. I mean, if you put on the television or the radio, it is constantly these things that you hear. But it is this part that is the mental health that we feel that we really have to, you know, take a much better grip on. Or what you say, Sienna?
Can I? Yeah, I want to say something about that actually, because I remember one of the first patients that I ever counseled in my training, and we did a sort of, you know, 6 to 8 week sessions, weekly sessions together, and she said something really important to me at the time. She said, you know, what's really important about managing a mental health crisis now, okay, is that you first of all engage in help, the correct type of help, you know, someone who's knowledgeable and willing to listen. But also there's this part of you that needs to take responsibility and empower yourself to continue to keep going. So yeah, we talk about hand washing and, you know, not touching your face, but the routine, your daily routine. And what I observed in this particular woman, she was a school teacher, was every time she came to see me, she was immaculate. She had bothered to get dressed, to put her makeup on, you know, to look fresh, to look clean. And this thing, I know, I can feel like, as I observe my teenage children around me, they're quite happy to not bother changing out of their pajamas all day. The bed doesn't get made, you know, cups and mugs get left all around the house. But this sense of, actually, you know what, we need to carry on. We need to pretend like we're going to work or we're going to school. And okay, I can't say that I have succeeded in being a homeschooling mum. Probably I've actually failed, I confess, because for my mental sanity, I cannot have that structure, that big structure of suddenly changing my home into a school, as well as, you know, trying to do all the other work. And you mentioned the charitable work. I mean, it's a great occupation for me, actually. I've been working from home for some years now, and so the office, as it were, at home is not very different. You know, I still have my routine. I have to wake up and I have to take meetings and calls and write reports and chase funding and create awareness for people who aren't available. So more about that later.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the reality. I mean, you're used to working from home, and you know the challenges. And also, we need to remember that people are different, so that self-compassion can be very good. And I think I think you're probably a very excellent mother with homeschooling. The reason I say that is because we're not going to shame ourselves out of anything here, and we're not going to blame ourselves out of anything. We're simply going to just rejoice in whatever we can do and do it well. And I think that there's going to be people showing up in pajamas at their jobs in the future because they learned it at home. So the world is going to change. I see this positive. I only see advantages. It's a maybe, you know, maybe that's just something.
Yeah, I mean, and that is actually what I think, and I keep discussing with friends, because you can communicate over telephone or like over a Skype, or I mean, there are many ways, or sending emails. And it is for some of my friends who say, oh, yeah, I was supposed to do this and this, and now I cannot do it. And I say, can't you find another way to do it? Because it isn't the same. I mean, you cannot have business as usual now. We don't know if there will be business as usual. You have to change things. So this with creativity, this is an opportunity to look inside for your creativity. And if you don't find it yourself, we will in these podcasts give you some tips about how to find it, you know, because creativity and gratefulness, I mean, being grateful for what you actually have, and a family, you know, instead of starting to be frustrated about people around you, be, you know, grateful that you have a family.
Yeah, and I also must say, Sienna, that you have been really inspiring for us, because what you have been doing, especially in Moria, in the camp there, is shown us that with an extreme lack of services for mental health or for care in any way, you've still managed to create an infrastructure and volunteers and people who are providing care in the absolute, under circumstances that nobody normally would accept. So I think if anything, you're a master at that.
Yeah, I mean, and now more than ever, because since everybody can understand that the refugee camp like Moria, cramped with people, is a huge, 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 huge challenge. It's not a challenge, actually, it is a crisis. And we don't know what is really going to be the next day, from day to day, when it comes to now this Corona crisis.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. I don't think I need to be pacified about that. That's actually what keeps me going day to day. But don't worry, I think my kids know that. And you know, I suppose the thing is that we need to be able to say to our kids, and also demonstrate to our kids, you know what, actually there's a balance. Yes, you do need some kind of a routine, but actually if you have a pajama day or two here and there, it's okay, the world won't collapse, you know. And I think that's what this coronavirus has demonstrated to us, isn't it? That actually here we are, still breathing, living, eating, and we're obviously very, very blessed, very, fortunate that we have comforts in the homes that we have set up, whereas the people I care for in Moria don't. And yes, and I wondered if it would be really helpful to talk about some of these mindsets that can be adopted. This mindset of I'm stuck at home, and instead saying, actually, I'm safe and I'm spending more time with my family, which of course can be a good or a bad thing, and learning to have that time and then giving them their space, especially when they're teenagers, is a really fine juggling act. And I'd love to talk to anybody more who has mastered that one.
Oh, usually I work with mental training for sports for athletes. And usually the thing is this: whatever image you have in your mind, make sure it's something you want rather than something you don't want. So if you experience disorganization, create an image of organization. If you experience lack of time, create an image of abundance. So whatever image you have in your head controls where you're heading. That's your map. And then it also helps really, really a lot to just try these body-mind techniques that Gunilla and I have been working with for so many years. Gunilla, there's one. Why don't you tell the story about the gorillas? I like that one.
Yeah, and yeah, so our work started in Rwanda and Eastern Congo, and now also Uganda, and that's the home of the mountain gorillas. And they are actually now being very well protected, or trying to protect them, because we have 98% the same DNA. So if there's corona going into the gorillas, they will be extinct. So there is also the protection. That's why it's also nice now to also think about the other living beings on this earth. And the gorilla tapping, as we call it, is it's an exercise that we teach to people, an easy way to relax, because everything you do with your body will affect your mind. So the gorilla tapping, it is what you do is just you tap with your fingertips all over your chest, just like you have seen a gorilla do, or Tarzan, for those who knew Tarzan when he was on the movies a long time ago.
Yeah, the first movie.
Yeah, the first movie.
With Johnny Weissmuller.
Yeah, exactly.
The
long
swimmer.
Time ago. But just tapping on your chest. So if you just do it now while you're listening to this, you tap with your fingertips all over your chest. You might even hear it through these microphones. And while you do that, you do a breathing, because breathing exercises are a very profound way and a very basic way of finding calm. Because you always have your breath, you keep breathing and you do it automatically, but you can also breathe with intent. And breathing with intent means that you actually think about that you're breathing. So while you're doing this tapping over your chest, you just breathe in, like now, you breathe in on the count of 4, and then you hold your breath, 2, 3, 4, and then you breathe out. 2, 3, 4, and then you hold your breath, 2, 3, 4, and then you breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and then you hold your breath, 2, 3, 4, and then you breathe out, 2, 3, 4, and then hold your breath, 2, 3, 4, and then the last time breathe in, 3, 4, and then you hold your breath, 2, 3, 4, and then you breathe out, 2, 3, 4, and hold your breath while tapping. Okay. So, and then you can just breathe normally. And this exercise, we call it quick stress relief, because it is quick. It takes like a couple of minutes, and then you can find yourself breathing a bit more easily. And these exercises can seem very simple, but if we should find calm in this very special time, in this time of crisis, we have to learn these things that can help you, and not just seeing that, oh, I cannot do this, I cannot do all the things I did before. No, but learn new things.
Yeah, but I mean, everybody learns mouth to mouth. You know, if somebody has a drowning incident or the Heimlich maneuver, food gets stuck in your throat. But what if a feeling gets stuck in your body, a feeling like anxiety? Then a simple exercise like this can actually release that just in a matter of minutes. And it may seem incredible, but in the same time, it's incredible that brushing your teeth 2 minutes a day will, keep them from rotting in a couple of years.
So, the thing about the breathing is so relevant because, as we know, and sorry, this is the medic in me now talking, is coronavirus brings out quite a severe respiratory illness, and it really can affect your breathing. And in fact, on one of my medical forums yesterday, they were emphasizing how important it is. Like, if you actually happen to develop COVID-19, the disease, obviously your lungs at the most severe time is going to be really incapacitated. And it is so important in the early stages of that illness to do exactly the exercise we've just demonstrated. And taking such deep breaths that you aerate the base of your lungs, because the base of your lungs, when you're moribund lying in bed with a burning fever, is the part that will stay collapsed. And that is where pneumonia can potentially start. So actually we have a video going around, which isn't the best made video, but it illustrates this point of how you do exactly what Gunilla just did. Take those deep breaths. And then I think at the end, you do 5 of those, in the fashion that you just did. And then at the end of 5 cycles, you do a little sort of, and do this safely. Don't do it in somebody's face. Do it into your elbow or into a tissue. Do a cough. And the cough actually just pops open the tiniest little bubbles in your lung called the alveoli.
Alveoles. Yeah. So that's so brilliant. I mean, to because it is because sometimes when we get some pain somewhere, we stop doing something with that part of the body, or like that with the lungs, because it feels uncomfortable. So we tend to breathe even less. And that, like you say, is even the most dangerous thing we can do when we have challenges with our lungs, to use them, because they also need this exercise to be able to do the work they do also in challenge time.
Yeah, and also, actually, when you add the tapping, it does a lot of neurological stuff that we're not going to go into right now, but we will in future podcasts, because we have, there's a lot of very interesting research today that shows how these very simple interventions, like Sienna just explained, actually make a difference, a life and death difference. So the thing is this, when we do these tapping and breathing exercises, it calms the nervous system down. And that could be the difference between needing a respirator and not. Because there have been patients that have said that when they have felt the need for air, they have been stressed. And the stress actually makes it even harder to breathe, because stress constrains the body and tenses the muscles. So what they've been doing is posting reports, and there's even a video with one person who was in hospital, couldn't really get the respirator yet. They tried the tapping exercise with the breathing, and they actually could postpone the emergency feeling for almost half an hour, which could be very valuable time.
I mean, panic, if you think about someone going into a full-blown panic attack, the first thing that happens is their breathing is completely out of order. I mean, I have to say, even when I work in hospitals, I have sometimes had to resort to a paper bag and getting them to just rebreathe their air and just calm down so they don't, become dizzy with overbreathing.
How does that work? Why do you breathe in? I always wonder, please. Dr. Sienna.
Okay, I have been out of hospital medicine and I haven't done biochemistry for a few years now, but basically when you overbreathe, it's a balance between the oxygen levels and the carbon dioxide levels in your blood. And so when you overbreathe, what you actually do is you blow out too much carbon dioxide, and you effectively, that in itself, the balance is disturbed, can actually affect the acidity and the pH of your blood, basically. And that alone, yeah.
So basically having a face mask could actually help me to breathe.
Rebreathe your air and
rebreathe a little bit.
So look, as I say, I'm not an intensivist. I haven't been dealing with the pH of blood and oxygenation of blood for some years, but it is important to understand that the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide, especially in coronavirus illnesses, is one of the things that kills. So when people then reduce their oxygen levels to below a certain level, you will not survive without supplemental oxygen on your face. But yes, so breathing, actually it's about the carbon dioxide and not the oxygen.
Yeah, so deep breathing, making sure you get air all the way down to the lungs, tapping at the same time over your chest adds a neurological calmness that we can go into later. And ending right in these times right now, ending it with a cough into your elbow will actually spark some life into the parts of your lungs that are maybe not running at top speed at the moment. We have an app that is free to download, and it's called Self-Help for Trauma. And you might regard trauma in this case, it might sound like a big word, but it's not. It just means stress up to a very high level. It shows an additional tapping sequence, which is longer. It's for Android and iOS, and it's free. It's in 27 languages. Please try it. Self-Help for Trauma. Just download it, look at it, try it. It's 5 minutes, and it could, like brushing your teeth or you know, any other exercise that we do that is for our health, it could really, really raise your odds of handling the situation.
Yeah, and now of course it is, I mean, definitely to be compared to washing your hands, because that is what we are encouraged to do all the time. So we said, you know, hand wash and hand hygiene, tooth hygiene, and also emotional hygiene. Don't forget the emotional hygiene, because the more we take care of ourselves, the more resistance we have, the more resilience, as we call it, you have. I mean, what you eat, what you do, what you think, all this comes together, you know. So we have to take care also of the ecosystem inside ourselves with what we eat, and also how we breathe and what we do with our thoughts. So, you know, this is super important.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's a time to round this first part of our pod series up. For this is Caring in Crisis, from people working in crisis to being in crisis, talking about finding calm in crisis situations. Share it with somebody that you love and care about, and send it around, and just make it spread faster than whatever we don't want spreading right now. You know the what? I'm not going to say the name, so I'm going to say thank you for me, and thanks for this time.
Thank you so much. This is Gunilla, and we hope to see you next time or hear you next time.
Thank you for listening. And this is Dr. Sienna, and we hope to keep sharing with you all the little tidbits that help us to survive.
Yeah, let's survive this together.
Survive and thrive.
Yes.
Love it.
In Sweden, we say Smurf when two people say this thing at the same time. We'll explain that later on.
Yeah, Sienna, I think Sienna said jinx. Yeah.
So,
I like
on a good note, take care, people. Breathe deeply.
Breathe.